today I'm here to discuss to you to sex tourism and how it is an immorally legitimate source of sustainable income. Let us first define what sex tourism is. Sex tourism is travel to engage in sexual activity, particularly with prostitutes. One of the world's oldest professions, but complete legal prohibition of prostitution has failed to remove the business. As we can see, just from the title itself, sex tourism, we can already identify how immoral it sounds. Let me quote from Diane Post, JD. The ILO, International Labor Organization's report, admits that most women choose prostitution for economic reasons. Surely no one can argue that this is free choice any more than the cattle in the squeeze chute choose to go to their death. From the line, we can say that yes, women are given the choice whether or not they want to enter prostitution or not. But do they really have the liberty or do they really have any other means of livelihood apart from that? I believe that they only enter prostitution due to the desperation or need for money. A lot of people or a lot of women, even men in particular, have a hard time getting jobs. And since sex tourism doesn't even require any form of credential, and all you need is your body itself, a lot of people enter into this kind of heinous and immoral act. Alarming things is, prostitution or sex tourism is very high within the Southeast Asian countries. As we can see, prostitution is very, very high. And one good example of this is Thailand. Thailand is ranked third highest in the world for sex tourism. It is a very, very surprising thing because within their country, sex tourism isn't even allowed. Prostitution is illegal. And yet, it is still one of the highest sources of income or economy that their country has. Sex tourism industry driven by poverty. Obviously, Thailand is a third world country. So a lot of the people or the citizens within the state end up resorting to prostitution due to the fact that they really have no other choice. All forms of prostitution are comparatively rich men buying poor women. Women and girls from poor rural families are the majority of sex workers. As you can see, just as I said, the majority of sex workers are really the poor people. Globally, there are 27 human beings trafficked and exploited. Women in Thailand are being trafficked to Japan as the majority of sex tourists in Thailand still come from the rich Asian countries. So, basically, I'm just going to summarize what I'm going to say in a few sentences. It's an immoral source of income because not only do you deprive the person or the woman or the man of his rights or to privacy, but also the fact that it is a form of consenting rape. Yes, the person is allowing you to use their body, but is it really for the purest of purposes? It's not. Basically, prostitution is consented rape. It is a violation of a person's body, mind, and prostitution cannot eliminate rape when it itself is bought rape. The connection between rape and prostitution is that women are turned into objects for men's sexual use. They can be either bought or stolen. A culture in which women can be bought for use is one in which rape flourishes. That was quoted from Australia, an Australian website in 2007. And lastly, it is also a very, very high chance that prostitution increases sexual diseases. Even if a prostitute is being tested every week for HIV, she will test negative for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks and possibly the first 12 weeks after being infected. So as we can see, it really is a very heinous business. Thank you.
Ako yung deputy ng government side. Masasabi ko lang is yung moral, uunahin natin yung meaning ng moral. So, ano ba yung moral? According to Webster, moral is considered right and good by most people. So, sa side ng government, ipapatunayan namin na immoral ang sex tourism. So ano ba yung sex tourism? Isa itong prostitution. So, sa prostitution, parang masasabing immoral ang prostitution. Una sa lahat, ayon sa Biblia, okay, ayon sa Ten Commandments, yung seventh commandment doon, sabi, you shall not commit adultery. So, ang ibig sabihin ng adultery is, may ipagtalik ng isang may asawa na sa taong wala pang asawa. So, according to Bible, bawal yun. So, sa sex tourism or prostitution, masasabi natin kung hindi man lahat ng client ay married na, halos lahat pa rin. Kasi yung mga nag-a-avail ng services sa isang club ay masasabi natin matatandang lalaki. So, syempre, ang pinipili nila is yung mga mas bata sa kanila, which is not married. So, doon pa lang masasabi na natin immoral ang sex tourism or prostitution. And according to the Prime Minister of the opposition team, may mga na-exploit sa sex tourism or prostitution. Pero, yun nga, nanggaling na sa kanya na may mga na-exploit na mga bata at saka halos lahat ng mga kababaihan na nasa prostitution. So, dun pa lang, nasabi na niya na immoral talaga ang sex tourism. Okay, so dun sa mga na-exploit, karamihan dun is mga bata. Almost more or less, 2 million children ang na-exploit ng sex industry. So, dito na nababaliwala yung rights ng mga bata. Hindi lang yun, na nagkakaroon din sila, yung mga nandun na sa club, nagkakaroon din sila ng mental and emotional disorders. Maraming mga sakit na napapakalat ang sex tourism sa iba't ibang tao, kaya dapat hindi na ito pinapalaganap. Kasi yung mga sakit na yun, like HIV and AIDS, merong prevention, pero I don't think na meron ng cure. So yun nga, napapakalat at napapalaganap ng sex industry ang mga sakit like STD or AIDS at saka HIV. Ayon sa aming source, hindi mako-consider na prostitution ang pagtatalik ng dalawang tao kapag pareho nilang gusto yun. Pero sa case ng sex tourism, marami silang pinapasok na prostitute na mga bata at saka teenager. Na masasabi ko na napilitan lang itong mga to kasi kailangan nila ng pera or kung hindi man, yung parents nila. Kaya masasabi ko immoral ang sex tourism.
I am the government too. And to sum up our side, sex tourism will not exist if there is no poverty. As people wish to have better lives for themselves and for their family, and with limited job offer and opportunities, they have no choice to do this type of immoral act. It is immoral not just in the law of God but also to men, as it has many flaws, as it includes spreading of diseases, degradation, and exploiting of women, child, and even men. Most of the sex workers are being abused, thus these abuses affect them not only physically but emotionally. And it also exposes them to suicide, depression, and substance abuse. Although it helps boost the economy from this business and brings more tourists to visit the country, it is not permanently true that it helps the workers in having a greater or much better lives than they have before. Sex tourism is illegal in most countries. The business or action is alive because of its high demands. And even though it's unlawful, it is not easily captured by government, for most of this business are privately owned. There have long been clear religious and ethical objections to the practice of selling sexual services and indeed to sex outside of the marital union. Prostitution creates a setting whereby crimes against men, women, and children become a commercial enterprise. It is an assault when he or she forces a prostitute to engage in sadomasochistic sex scenes. When a pimp compels a prostitute to submit to sexual demands as a condition of employment, it is exploitation, sexual harassment, or rape. Acts that are based on the prostitute's compliance rather than her consent. The fact that a pimp or customer gives money to a prostitute for submitting to these acts does not alter the fact that child sexual abuse, rape, and/or battery occurs. It merely redefines these crimes as prostitution. One needs to completely rid oneself of the voracity for cash to see that prostitution, although legalized, can never be a legitimate business because it will always be associated with crime, corruption, class, mass sexual exploitation, and human trafficking. Some prostitution defenders argue that prostitution is an acceptable solution to poverty. What they mean, but they don't say, that is that prostitution is an acceptable solution for women living in poverty. Seldom do we see proposals that poor men should make their way out of poverty by welcoming the insertion of penises and other objects into them on a regular basis or dance naked on a stage in front of ugly and masturbating males. The prostitution industry exploits to its advantage the fact that most women and children who are prostitution come from the most oppressed and vulnerable groups in society.